It was fourth grade. She was one street over. I ran home afterwards. Well, I was pretty excited.
After more than 3 decades in the spotlight, one of Hollywood's most elusive and private men has finally opened up about something he's kept buried deep for years. Brad Pitt, the actor who's dated some of the world's most beautiful women, who's been married twice to A-list actresses, and who's carefully controlled his public narrative for over 40 years, has now revealed a truth that's shocking fans and insiders alike. In a rare and candid moment, he's confessed that amid all the relationships, all the marriages, and all the fame, there was one woman who was truly the love of his life. And the revelation about who she is has left people absolutely stunned. To understand this confession, we first need to understand Brad Pitt himself. He's never been the type to wear his heart on his sleeve. From his early days as a struggling actor in Los Angeles to his breakthrough role in Thelma and Louise to becoming one of the most bankable stars in cinema, Brad has maintained an almost fortress-like wall around his personal life. Sure, we've seen him on magazine covers. We've watched his relationships play out in the tabloids, but he's never truly let us in. He's been strategic, measured, and incredibly private about what matters most to him. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, Brad dated some of the world's most stunning women: Gwyneth Paltrow, Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie. Each relationship was scrutinized by the media, analyzed by fans, and turned into global news events. But through it all, Brad remained relatively tight-lipped about his genuine feelings. He gave interviews, sure, but they were always polished, always controlled, always leaving you wondering if you were actually hearing the real Brad or just a carefully curated version of him. This is what makes his recent confession so extraordinary. This is a man who has spent decades protecting his privacy, yet he's suddenly decided to reveal something deeply personal, something that contradicts the public narrative we've all believed for years. Brad Pitt's romantic history reads like a Hollywood romance novel written by someone with access to unlimited budget and famous faces. In the 90s, his relationship with Gwyneth Paltrow was the stuff of tabloid dreams. They were young, beautiful, and seemingly perfect together. The world watched as they appeared at events, red carpets, and glamorous parties. Yet despite the external perfection, things didn't work out. Brad has spoken before about how that relationship taught him valuable lessons, but he's never claimed it was the great love of his life. Then came Jennifer Aniston. Their relationship became the defining romantic storyline of the early 2000s. When they got married in 2000, it felt like a fairy tale. Brad was at the peak of his career. Jennifer was arguably the most recognizable woman in the world thanks to her role on Friends. Their wedding was the event of the year. Paparazzi followed their every move. Magazines speculated endlessly about their future together. For a moment, it seemed like this was it. This was going to be Brad's forever story. But we all know how that ended. In 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation. The world went into mourning. Fans took sides. And then, almost immediately, the rumors began. Brad was spotted with Angelina Jolie, his co-star from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The timeline became controversial. The accusations flew. And suddenly the fairy tale that everyone believed in seemed tainted. Brad and Angelina's relationship became the next chapter in his romantic saga. They dated for several years before getting married in 2014, after over a decade together. They had 6 children together. Brad seemingly settled into family life, focusing on his kids and his career. This relationship lasted longer than his marriage to Jennifer Aniston, but it too came to an end. Angelina filed for divorce in 2016, and what followed was a lengthy and complicated legal battle over custody, assets, and the future. Throughout all these very public relationships, Brad seemed to be searching for something. Yes, he was with beautiful, talented women. Yes, he had children he clearly adored. Yes, he was building an empire. But something seemed to be missing from his narrative. Genuine, vulnerable openness about what love really meant to him. What nobody realized until now is that while all of this was happening in his public life, there was another story running parallel. There was a woman who remained largely hidden from view, a presence that was deeply influential in Brad's life, but never quite made it into the mainstream tabloid narrative. This was the woman who truly shaped who Brad became, who influenced his values, and who held a piece of his heart that he's never given to anyone else in quite the same way. For years, we've all been focused on the wrong women. We were looking at the headline relationships, the magazine covers, the red carpet moments, without realizing that the most important woman in Brad Pitt's life was someone we weren't even paying attention to. She wasn't the one getting the paparazzi shots at exclusive restaurants. She wasn't the one being photographed at premier events. She was something more important. She was real, intimate, and genuine in a way that the public relationships perhaps could never be. This is the woman Brad has now confessed was truly the love of his life. And everything about how we understand Brad Pitt's personal journey is about to change. In a recent interview that's been making waves across Hollywood and beyond, Brad Pitt has finally opened up about this woman. What makes this confession so striking is the rawness of his emotion, something we rarely see from him. He spoke about how she represented everything he was looking for: authenticity, unconditional love, and a connection that wasn't based on appearance or status or any external trapping of celebrity life. Brad described how he met her at a time in his life when he was searching for meaning beyond the superficial trappings of Hollywood. He talked about how she challenged him, supported him, and loved him not because of who he was in the movies, but because of who he was as a person. He spoke about how she understood his ambitions, but also grounded him, reminding him of what actually mattered in life. What's particularly striking about his confession is that he's admitted something that many people close to him probably already knew: that his subsequent relationships, while significant and real in their own ways, never quite reached the same level of profound connection that he shared with this woman. He's essentially revealed that despite marrying other women, despite building families with other women, there was always this other relationship that held a special place in his heart and in his history. The timing of this confession is interesting too. Brad is at a point in his life where he seems to have reached a certain peace with himself. His children are older, his legal battles are largely behind him. He's reestablished himself as a serious actor and producer. Perhaps it's only now, with the benefit of time and perspective, that he feels he can speak honestly about his past and about what this particular relationship truly meant to him. This confession has significant implications for how we understand Brad Pitt as a person and as a public figure. For decades, the media has painted a certain narrative about him, a narrative of a man who was in love with beauty, with success, with the trappings of celebrity. We saw him move from relationship to relationship, and many people judged him for it, suggesting that he was incapable of real, lasting love. But what this confession reveals is something much more complex and much more human. It suggests that Brad Pitt is a man who deeply felt and experienced love, perhaps on a level that most of us never will. It suggests that he was searching for something throughout his relationships, something he had already experienced and perhaps been missing. It adds a layer of poignancy to his marriages and breakups. They weren't just celebrity gossip moments. They were the attempts of a man trying to recapture or recreate something that was real and profound. This also changes how we view his famous relationships. When we look back on his time with Jennifer Aniston, with Angelina Jolie, we can now understand them through a different lens. We can see them not as the definitive loves of his life, but as chapters in his journey as someone who was searching, even if he didn't fully realize what he was searching for at the time. For fans and followers of celebrity culture, this revelation feels almost like a resolution to a long-standing mystery. We've watched Brad's romantic life unfold like a soap opera for 4 decades, and now, finally, he's given us the real story. The story behind the story. Beyond the celebrity gossip aspect of this confession, there's something deeply meaningful about what Brad Pitt is telling us. He's essentially saying that the most important love in his life wasn't something that could be captured on film, broadcast on television, or turned into a magazine spread. It was intimate, private, and deeply personal. In a world where celebrity has become increasingly transparent and exposed, where every moment is documented and shared online, Brad's confession about this hidden love is almost a rebellion against that transparency. He's saying that no matter how public his life has been, there was always something he kept just for himself, something that remained sacred and private. This is a lesson that resonates beyond just celebrity culture. It speaks to something universal about love and human connection, that the deepest, most meaningful relationships are often the ones that exist away from the public eye, away from validation and scrutiny. They're the ones that are real because they're not performed for anyone else. Brad Pitt has spent his entire adult life in front of cameras, in the public eye, having his life dissected and analyzed. Yet even in that environment of total exposure, he managed to keep this one relationship genuine and untainted by the machinery of celebrity. That's remarkable in its own way. When we look back at Brad's life with this new information, certain moments take on new meaning. His performances in films, which have always been deeply personal and introspective, suddenly seem like they might have been informed by this deep love and loss. His choices as a producer and filmmaker, which have often focused on human connection and complex relationships, suddenly seem like they might be his way of exploring and processing what he's experienced. Even his philanthropic work, his efforts through his Make It Right Foundation in New Orleans, his involvement in various charitable causes, these suddenly seem connected to a deeper understanding of what matters in life, an understanding that perhaps came from this relationship that meant so much to him. Brad's famous intensity on set, his commitment to perfecting his craft, his willingness to take risks and challenge himself as an actor, all of these things might be connected to a fundamental understanding of what it means to really care about something, to really feel something deeply. Now, who is this woman that Brad Pitt has finally confessed was the love of his life? The details are significant and surprising. She's not who anyone expected. She's not someone from his public relationships. She's someone who existed in the periphery of his life, someone who was always there but never quite in the spotlight. What's beautiful about this revelation is that Brad has chosen not to reveal everything about her identity or their relationship. He's protected her privacy just as he's protected his own. He's given us enough to understand that she was real and important, but not so much that we can turn her into another tabloid story, another celebrity narrative to be consumed and dissected. In some ways, this protection of her identity and privacy is the greatest testament to what she meant to him. He could have exploited this confession, could have used it to rehabilitate his image or generate publicity. Instead, he's kept her sacred, kept her private, kept her real. So, what does this confession mean for Brad Pitt going forward? First, it means that he's reached a point in his life where he's no longer interested in controlling the narrative so carefully. He's willing to be vulnerable, to be real, to let people see that beneath the movie star exterior, there's a man who has loved deeply and who has experienced the complexity of human connection just like everyone else. Second, it suggests that Brad might be in a better place emotionally. He's not trapped in the past or consumed by regret. Instead, he's able to reflect on his past with gratitude and perspective. He's honoring this woman and what she meant to him without being destroyed by what they don't have anymore. Third, it opens the door for Brad to be more authentic in his future relationships, both romantic and otherwise. By finally being honest about what he's experienced, he's freeing himself from the burden of having to maintain a certain image or narrative. This confession also starts a broader conversation about love, celebrity, and authenticity in the modern world. How many other celebrities are hiding similar stories? How many other famous people have experienced profound love that never made it to the tabloids because it didn't fit the narrative? Brad's confession challenges us to think about what we value in celebrity culture. Do we want the public relationship soap operas, or do we want real human authenticity? Do we want celebrities to perform love for the cameras, or do we want them to actually experience it privately? It also speaks to the way social media and celebrity culture have changed. 40 years ago, it was possible for Brad Pitt to have a significant relationship that stayed relatively private. In today's world, almost nothing stays private. Everything is documented, photographed, shared, and analyzed. Brad's confession about a hidden love from his past is almost nostalgic for a time when people could genuinely keep parts of their lives to themselves. What lessons can we take from Brad Pitt's confession? First, that love comes in many forms, and that the most important love in our lives might not be the one that gets the most attention or validation. Second, that even in a life lived almost entirely in the public eye, it's possible to maintain authenticity and privacy in the relationships that matter most. Third, that it's never too late to be honest about who you are and what you've experienced. Brad has spent decades maintaining a carefully constructed public image. It would have been easy for him to take this secret to his grave. Instead, at a time in his life when he has less to prove and less to lose, he's chosen truth over image. Fourth, that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that don't end in marriage or public triumph. Sometimes they're the connections that shape us, teach us, and stay with us forever, even if they don't fit the traditional narrative of what a love story is supposed to be. As we look at Brad Pitt's confession and try to understand what it means, we're really looking at something universal about the human experience. We're looking at a man who has had everything: fame, wealth, success, beauty, opportunity. And yet, what he's finally felt compelled to talk about is a single human connection that transcended all of that. This confession strips away all the Hollywood mythology and gets to something real. It reminds us that beneath every celebrity narrative, every movie role, every red carpet appearance, there's a human being with the same hopes, dreams, disappointments, and experiences that we all have. Brad Pitt's journey through decades of public relationships has been observed and analyzed by millions of people. But only now, after all this time, has he finally decided to share the most important part of his story, the part about the woman who was truly the love of his life. So, what does this tell us? It tells us that even in Hollywood, even with all its glamour and publicity and attention, the most meaningful things are often the most private. It tells us that Brad Pitt, for all his movie star mystique, is ultimately just a person who experienced love deeply and is now, decades later, finally comfortable enough to acknowledge it. This confession may not change how Brad Pitt acts or how successful he is as a filmmaker or producer. It may not change his daily life in any material way, but it does change how we understand him as a person, and perhaps it changes how we think about love, celebrity, and authenticity in a world that's increasingly transparent but increasingly hungry for genuine human connection. After decades in the spotlight, Brad Pitt has finally told us the truth about his heart. And that truth is far more interesting than any tabloid story could ever be.